Good morning. It's morning here. I don't know what time it is when you're watching the class. Thank you for attending class number 2. My name is Marie. Of course, you know me by now, having attended the webcam in the class number 1. I have my coffee. I hope you have something to drink. Please feel free to take notes. We're going to be discussing how these limiting beliefs that we've already gotten into are affecting our personal relationships. That's also going to include a little bit of a look at how our relationships with ourselves affect those personal relationships. And these are going to cover not just your romantic life partner type relationships, friendships, the type of friends you choose, the type of people you choose to be around. And we already have a good idea of how these limiting beliefs begin. So without any further ado, because everyone's time is precious, we're going to jump right into this. So we already know what limiting beliefs are. And we know that we've been dealing with them most of our lives. They come into play very, very young in our lives. My apologies. I thought I had turned off my phone. And let me just do that super quick because that is very rude of me. I apologize. Okay, I just put it into airplane mode. In case you didn't know, anytime you're doing something like that, you can put your phone in airplane mode and nobody will bother you. I apologize. Okay, so we're going to get started with these personal relationships. Now, maybe you're attending this part of the class hoping to discover why your personal relationships are difficult, why so many of them maybe have not worked out. Certainly, again, I'm in my mid-50s. Certainly, there's been more than one that has not worked out, and certainly there have been relationships that are difficult. Personal relationships include, maybe you have a difficult relationship with your family or a family member, or maybe you are struggling with a relationship with your child or an adult child. So there's, obviously many types of relationships that we have in our lives. And so sometimes we'll notice that that relationship has let us down, or we're not happy, or maybe we think it could be better and we don't know how. We don't feel like we're getting reciprocation from that person. And while it's not all on us, okay, how we conduct ourselves coming from a place of alignment and peace as opposed to a place of limit and fear and fight or flight and suspicion can make a lot of difference in the tone of the relationship and the response that you get. Not in any way am I saying that all of the dynamic of a relationship is on you. But the types of relationships that you choose and the types of people you choose to have them with are up to you. So we'll get started. We know the definition of limiting beliefs, and we are coming to understand them. Now, with regard to, pardon me just a second, with regard to our personal relationships, maybe you notice that you tend to have the same relationship over and over, just with different people. I did. I noticed that. The people may not look the same, might not be from the same place, may not speak the same, may not have the same background, but the characteristics of the relationship are exactly the same because the dynamic of the personality of the person is the same. So we seek out consciously what we think we want, what we think is going to make our life better, what we think is going to make us happy. We surround ourselves with certain types of friends because we like that person. We feel some kind of connection to that person, or that group of people is a group that's into something that we're very interested in. Sometimes, though, I'm just going to throw this out there. Have you looked around at a circle of friends and wondered why you're there? Because you don't really seem to contribute much to the group. In fact, you kind of retract back because for some reason you feel they won't, they're not really going to honor what you have to say or acknowledge or anything like that, that you have any kind of authority to be speaking or exchanging ideas, that you're just kind of there. Maybe it's to satisfy a spouse, or because you think that's, the people that you're supposed to be hanging around with if you want to accomplish such and such. And if it's a group of people that you don't feel comfortable with, or that you have to sit and wonder why you're even there, that's your first red flag. We'll start with this group because it's one of the most blatant examples, is your group of friends, the people that you spend the most time with. And so the limiting beliefs surrounding that would be what? Think about it. Why would you deliberately hang around with people who you're not really sure if they really like you or if they're just being nice to you, and you have these suspicions that they think maybe they're smarter than you, or, I love the quote, don't ever be the smartest person in the room. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Now, that's a really wonderful thing to keep in mind. But the flip side of that is you want to be careful not to deliberately choose groups where you're inconsequential, and because you're not growing there either. And if you're not contributing, there's no exchange of ideas. There's no exchange of any kind of information. The dynamic is kind of off kilter and you feel out of place. Ideally, since we generally emotionally are the sum of the 5 people we spend the most time around, think about who those people are. Maybe you're like me, I don't spend time around a lot of people all the time, but the people I'm around the most are the people that it's just sort of easy and you feel comfortable with them. You understand that dynamic. And then there's those people that you come across from time and again that, for whatever reason, your energy kind of flows around them. They can be speaking on a subject and all of a sudden, you're just lit up like a Christmas tree. Those are the kind of people you need to seek out, not because they're smarter than you, not because of the emotion or the feeling that you're having, but because there's an energy connection there. There's something that you're meant to learn, and everything that we learn, we should turn around and share and teach and help somebody else with. Those are the kind of environments where you're actually going to grow instead of just stagnate. Have you ever canceled plans with a friend who you think a lot of, but you just know I'm not up for it. It's going to be a lot of drama. You're solving a lot of problems for somebody. That's all it is. There's no reciprocity there either. Or maybe they do listen for a little bit, but there's really nothing to be gained, and you walk away feeling a little more depleted than when you came, or you just cancel the plans altogether because you're not emotionally ready to deal with that dinner or party or whatever you were invited to do. That's another red flag. I mean, maybe they're terrific. Doesn't reflect on them as a person. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible person either. It just means it's not the environment that your energy is seeking. And so take a look at, okay, well, why? Do I feel sorry for people? Do I need to fix people? Which was me. I feel like I can help people, or I feel like these are the people who I'm supposed to be hanging around with so that I don't get judged, or I don't get, this and that and the other. Does that sound familiar? These are all limiting beliefs. We want to fit in. We want to be accepted. We want to put that face out to the world. I'm okay. I'm good. There's nothing wrong with me. There's no reason to poke fun or judge or anything like that. And so we construct these little, circles of people that we spend time around. The same can also be true of partners. We can choose partners based on superficial things, people that, that we're supposed to be attracted to or supposed to like, or he has a good job, or she has her stuff together, and there's criteria based on your experience. But the limiting beliefs will come into play there too, because when you're choosing either friend or partner, then these things will come into play if you've had them happen to you. Do you have any kind of limiting beliefs around people who are dishonest, people who will do you wrong, people who will cheat on you? Perhaps you've been cheated on. Are you a suspicious type of person? Are you going into the relationship expecting them to let you down? That's a big one. These are things, I hope you're jotting some of these if they apply to you. Now, if they don't apply to you, there's really no need to jot them down. I don't suppose, but the dynamics of any relationship are gonna be in some ways, in a lot of ways, determined by you and how you feel about you and what you deserve and what you are willing to give to the relationship and what you expect from the relationship. We all have expectations. Some people have unrealistic expectations. Some people have deficient, what I will call deficient expect. They don't expect much because they've been taught not to expect much. Now, what you feel in your core that you deserve from a relationship, okay, let's say that you're looking at a romantic partner and you feel like you need someone who, and we all would want this, someone who's reciprocal, who's able to talk with us, who's able to communicate effectively ideas, feelings, someone who notices things and isn't just all up in their own head, someone who does nice things for no reason, all of these things. And let's say you are not that person for yourself. I'm going to stop that there and just let you think about it. The things you expect from a partner are these things that you do for yourself. Ultimately, nobody else is going to fix your problems or make you happy. No one is going to fill the I'm not happy void except you. And so if you, no, we're not obviously talking about physical aspects of any kind of romantic relationship here. We're not talking about that. But the expectations that you have of someone else and how you want to be treated, if they're incredibly low, then we have work to do because you deserve to be treated with respect, with care, with love. You deserve to be communicated with. You deserve a reciprocal relationship. If your expectations are not being met and you expect the things that I said at the first, then are you treating yourself well? Let's do the second example. If your expectations are low and you just, as long as he doesn't hurt me, I'm fine. As long as he doesn't hit me, I'm fine. I have met people that their expectation of a person was so low that as long as they weren't having things flung at them, even if they were talked to badly, that was okay because at least they felt safe or they had, a roof over their head. Whatever. And these are things that are, well, they're seriously bad limiting beliefs, but these are things that this person has come to understand or feel they deserve, and that's how they treat themselves. So how we treat other people, 9 times out of 10, usually we treat other people, the people we care about, better than we treat ourselves, but not always. Now, if we have a set of limiting beliefs like I don't deserve to be really loved, I don't deserve to be treated well, people only want to be around me for what I can give them, or I'm not smart enough or pretty enough, or if I gain 5 pounds, I won't be loved. All of these things are in play. I'm overly sensitive to tones of voice, or, every time somebody disrespects me, it triggers me. All of these things are in play and we need to take a look at them. So, that's one of my big ones right there. I used to have a really bad trigger for people who spoke really harshly or disrespectfully to me. For many years, for the first half of my adult life, I would sort of accept it, absorb it, and let it go because I felt like I deserved it. And then something kind of clicked and I went completely in the other direction. And all of a sudden, I was not standing for that. And I was coming back with the exact same thing I had just received from another person. And I was doing the exact same thing back to them without seeing that I was doing it, but I thought I was standing my ground. Boundaries are okay, but we have to understand from a perspective of, the behavior that we don't want, the behavior that we're not willing to tolerate in a relationship need not be the behavior we're exhibiting in the relationship. And that for me was a hard thing, taking my own responsibility for my part in the dynamic of a relationship. We all have that. There's not many people that are really going to hear this and really admit it, but the first marriage I had didn't go well. It did for a while, as long as I pretended there was nothing wrong, everything was fine. And then when I finally decided to leave, it was several years before I stopped just projecting all the bad stuff, the bad guy persona onto him. I had to finally take responsibility for the fact that how I dealt with what was going on, how I reacted to what was going on, was all part of the dynamic of that relationship. And so some people, I got tired of being called an enabler, but that's exactly what I was. Some people enable bad behavior because not just because they tolerate it, because they actually speak it into existence. The passive aggressive, the comments under the breath, the ways that we interact with someone to elicit the behavior we expect. That was a tough one. I actually did not realize that as much as I try to do right by people and we want to feel like, I want to be the good guy. I'm the person who's loving. I'm the person who's giving and all of this. But please realize, and you'll find at least one example of this, where you have deliberately said or something or started a conversation or done something in addition to verbalizing that elicited the behavior you were expecting. Maybe not every single time it happened, but it does happen. So the dynamic in the relationship is partially you. And if you're not in a place of a good, healthy mindset in alignment with who you are and at peace with your growth and your change and, like I say, how you deal with yourself, then there is no way for there to be a successful relationship outside of that, because you're not bringing the healthiest you to the table. Perhaps I went the long way around the barn on that, but I want to make sure I got that point home, because it's to me, the turning point of any healthy relationship is when each person is able to embrace what's broken and fix it. Feeling that you're inadequate or you're insecure about your looks, or you have a hair trigger temper, or you cry all the time, or what are these things that you see as your downside. And like I said, we did this in the first class with the physical. I'm going to encourage you to do this again with your attributes. Focus on your positive attributes, the things that you know to be true about you, that are positive, that contribute positive things to your relationships, even your friends, family, whatever. Do you tend to be more positive? Are you a person who is a solution finder? Do you try to please everyone all the time? Are you all of these things? I like to do things for other people. I love to give gifts. I love to support people and cheer them on when they're doing something. What are your good positive attributes that you bring to the relationship? And you're going to go ahead and list some of the things that maybe now you're thinking about. Well, what are the things that maybe I'm bringing in that are not helping? And every time we have a new relationship, we talk about, though, we shouldn't bring our old baggage into the new relationship, and that's true, but next to impossible if you don't understand why you have the baggage, if you don't understand that bag is something you can set down and walk away from, if you don't understand that until you hold yourself in esteem and you truly are intentional about who you are and how you behave and how you take things in and how you process them, that part of the dynamic of the relationship that isn't good is going to be a result of some of your behavior as well. So in order to have a great relationship in any other capacity, including with our parents or our children, until we are able to take our responsibility, come out of the victimhood of things that have happened to us and things that we've taken in, and come into our own responsibility, it's so freeing. It sounds scary, and nobody likes to think bad things about themselves, but I can tell you with absolute certainty that I've done this. And while it hurt at first, it was the most emotionally freeing thing I ever did. It has changed so many relationships in my life. For me to be coming at a place of gratitude, I'm coming from a place, of gratitude, of peace, of alignment, my values. I'm living in accordance with what I feel is my core values, and trying to help other people And I have an awareness. And once you know, awareness of things that either used to be triggers for me or that I'm still working on. And you take that moment and step back and calculate your response and be intentional. Once you start to do that, you'll notice that just because you changed your part of the dynamic of the relationship, the whole relationship is going to change. Now, at this point, some of that's going to be on them, and some of those relationships may not survive this growth that you're doing. And some of these relationships are going to absolutely bloom. You'll also notice that the new relationships you have are healthier ones because you're making choices about people that are not based on predetermined judgments about who they might be, fear. They're not coming from a place of fear. You're not coming from a place of high, I've got to have this high stress and I've got to have this fear, or else I'm not on top of my game and I'm not going to see who they really are. And you're not coming from a place of I expect bad things, because you understand that the big secret is the void that you feel has to be filled by you. That's not fair to put that on somebody else. They don't know how to manage their own, much less how to fix you. Until you know that your void, what your needs are that are missing, that will make you feel happy and in alignment, are coming from you, then you're going to keep making choices that are not good for you because of these limiting beliefs. So if you are jotting anything down, maybe some things that you have realized maybe about yourself, like with me, that I would like for your list to have less bad things than good things. I would like for you to make an effort to put down all of the good things about you, all of the things that you feel happy about, that you're glad about, that you've worked to get, and that you feel are a positive contribution. I would like for your short list to be your detractant list, the things that you would change about you that you've come to understand are not helping you, or maybe just a list of just flat out your limiting beliefs. I would like that to be shorter than your attributes list. And here's why: because before you write down, you can write negative stuff about yourself till tomorrow if you wanted to. I want it to be something specific that is true. It can't be just, something that, you can't just write down, well, because I'm ugly. Well, okay, that's a matter of perception. You see yourself in a certain way. It may or may not be true. So before you write it down, ask yourself, is it true? And is it something that I want to fix? So your belief that maybe you don't deserve love because I have to change myself to suit people's expectations so that I can fit in because I have unrealistic expectations of others because it has to be true. So negative communication patterns, we all have those. These are generally the result of one of two things. They're definitely a result of any kind of limiting beliefs. When we communicate in a negative way, it's because we've come to believe that's how we have to communicate, to be heard or whatever. And the other thing is, the other time this happens, usually when you feel verbally attacked or you feel like you have to defend yourself, the fight or flight thing, and then most of that communication is going to be negative, energy matching. We live in a society where, and I'm as guilty as the next person of these, cool one-liner zingers, and I'm not talking about that. Those are usually with people you don't know or people you extremely know well and you're kidding with them or what have you. But with regard to the real communication in your relationships, if you are overly defensive, if you feel everything is a slight, if you immediately stonewall. These are indicators that you have some work to do, because you need to look at why. What are you afraid of? Both of those, being well, you can't take criticism either, but being very defensive of any kind of perceived criticism or slight, and stonewalling, keeping people out. What are you afraid of? Because it's usually something like, I'm afraid I'll be rejected. I'm afraid I'll be laughed at. I'm afraid I'll be what? What are you afraid of? And when somebody got me, when I was taking, this kind of training several years ago, that was a hard one for me, because I was sitting there going, well, I'm afraid of, and then I'd stop, and it was impossible for me to really verbalize what I was afraid of. Our biggest, most common fear is of being embarrassed. In most situations. But in this situation, I'm going to venture out here and just lay this out here, and you can agree with me or no, it's up to you. But with regard to this situation that I'm talking about here, when you are overly defensive and stonewalling, and you let people into a point and then no further, it's because you're afraid of rejection and being alone. Here's the ironic part of that. Most of the people, including me, that I've ever known that were like that were alone by choice. So if it's not afraid of being alone, what are you afraid of? And what it came down to for me was, I was afraid that something negative somebody thought about me might be correct. And in the case of several things, that it was. And by someone, what someone thinks of me, this would have been my life partner. You're going to come to the point during this work with yourself and your limiting beliefs where it's really just not going to make that much difference what other people think. Who you are, and aligning with your core beliefs, and living intentionally to treat yourself well, and to talk well with yourself, and to be good to others, and creating that mindset is going to kind of, some of the detractors are just going to kind of go away. But the people who are critical in your life, and by critical, I don't mean they criticize you. I mean, they're your inner circle. It's going to come to a point where they're either going to embrace this with you or they're not. You may experience emotional distance from someone as you grow. You may experience the sharpness of what you hadn't noticed about their personality before. And then again, you may be pleasantly surprised. They may welcome you with open arms. I've been waiting. They may have seen all of this greatness in you, all of this wonderful balance, that they wanted the best for you, and they've been waiting for you to capture this and live it. So it's really, let me just get my breath there, because that was kind of, when I was going through this and kind of dealing with my fears, it was, I think, the toughest part. Once you've labeled it, once you have written it down or said it out loud, it's like anything else. It's like any other feeling or any other stressor or anything that you're going through. Bringing it out diminishes its severity. It diminishes its scariness. It diminishes the dark. I don't know. We keep it inside because we can't tell anybody, or we don't want to deal with it. Or if once it's out there on the table, it might just devour us whole. And that's never the case. Bringing out something that you're not proud of, or not happy with, or you don't quite understand, is the only way to work it through and get past it and move on. So if it's something about you that you have to come to terms with, okay, it's not scary. It's not going to bite your head off. There's not, it's your life is not over. All this is you're bringing it out and going, I'm done with this. I'm tired of being overly defensive. I'm tired of stonewalling and keeping people at a distance. I'm tired of being afraid. And I want something different. Then bring it all out onto the table. Figure out why you feel that way. Maybe it's going to go back. Maybe it's going to go back to childhood, something that happened to you as a young person, or maybe a young adult person, that caused you to withdraw, that caused you to feel Like if you didn't protect your barriers and your boundaries, that you were somehow going to be hurt and you wouldn't come back from that. But you've come through this much of life and you've been hurt, and here you still are. So we're going to tie all this in now. Your brain now understands is now coping with what these beliefs are and coming to understand how you got them. And I highly recommend sessions of breathing and meditation with this. I highly recommend, while you're jotting this stuff down, take some time, sit down, do some straight back so that your diaphragm is up, and do some, breathing in through the nose to the count of 4 and hold, and out through the mouth. And as you're doing that, let your mind just kind of go. And as you breathe in, maybe, what I like to do is I like to breathe in things that I can visibly see in my mind are positive, and hold them here. And then before I hold them for the count of like 3 or 4. And then while I'm counting to 3 or 4, I imagine the negative things coming up through my limbs and then blowing them out through my mouth. And I do this for maybe 5 minutes. And it's a game changer with mindset. You don't have to be afraid of what you've already been through, because it's over. You don't have to be afraid of how you feel about that. You don't have to keep carrying it with you. Yes, it's good that you got through it, and you deserve to feel good about that. But it doesn't mean it has to dictate the rest of your life. It doesn't mean that you have to let these beliefs about love, about who you are, and if you're acceptable, and if you're going to be accepted, and if you're worthy, that those limiting beliefs don't have to dictate the rest of it. If you want to be peaceful in your life, you're going to have to come inside and figure it out. Because as soon as you do, and you start being intentional with you and your relationship and your mindset, you're going to be just by default more intentional with the people you have relationships with. And you're not as likely to mumble under your breath if your husband doesn't take the trash out, or you're not as likely to be like that passive aggressive kind of snarky kind of dynamic that goes on sometimes with people who live together, or siblings, or parents. You're not as likely to be as snappy with your kids. You're not as likely to be as intolerant or impatient as you once were. I don't have road rage anymore. That's one of the first things that happened to me. I've learned not to expect a bad outcome. I've learned that my intentionality is all that I focus on. I want to stay at peace. And so I don't concern myself and expend energy on what I think other people might do that might cause me upset, because that's a waste of time. Actually, it's like trying to dry your boots while you're still in the pool. It just is counterproductive. So when you start this journey, here's a couple things. Like I say, you're going to be making the list. And when you're talking about your list and saying these things to yourself, be intentional with, is it true? And if it is, it doesn't make you a bad person that you have something you want to correct. Just as so it doesn't make you perfect that you have good things. It doesn't mean that your life is over. It doesn't mean that you're a terrible person. It means you have been at the mercy of things that instilled themselves as beliefs before you were capable of telling it, no, I don't believe that. You were not old enough to discern whether or not it was real. So give yourself a break and some grace and go through this list. Now, the other intentional thing I would like for you to do is start speaking to yourself, whether you do it in the car, while you're getting ready for work. I talk to myself a lot in the kitchen, talk to yourself. Make sure that you say something positive to yourself several times a day. If you're fixing to just say something like, and there's my southernness coming out. If you're getting ready to say something like, God, I can't even believe you dropped that. What is the matter with you? Because you dropped something. Instead of that, go, oh, wow, okay. Say something positive like, well, it didn't break, or oh, I should have seen that. I should have helped you. Something to your mind and your physical body that's more positive. That's a bad example, but I use things like that all the time. I'll say things like, it's good to feel good this morning. I'm putting something in that feels good. You know what, lady? You're pretty darn amazing. And on most days I do feel that I can be pretty amazing if I decide to be. And so I make that decision every day. I make the decision to try to be amazing, to try to help someone, to try to do all the things that align with my core beliefs every day. Am I successful every day? No. Nobody's perfect. Do I have times when other people's energy invades and I find myself struggling for that positivity? Oh, yes. You're going to have those days. People's negative energy loves company, and they're going to try to pull you in, the office gossip, or the friend that always wants to talk crap about other people, or somebody that just can't get happy. Those people, if you spend too much time around them, they're going to pull you in, and you'll start noticing, and you'll be fighting. It's like you'll be fighting for that positive. I suggest a physical separation, like walk away, go to the grocery store, take yourself to the movies. Maybe do a breathing session. I like to get out and walk or do some light yoga, whatever. Anything that physically removes you from that energy. It disturbs the energy around you. I think of it as like pushing water away. That's the way I visualize it in my mind, because it's going to be a challenge every day for the rest of your life. But it's always been a challenge. So this is not something you're taking on, oh my gosh, now I've got to do this for the rest of my life. Yeah, you were going to do it for the rest of your life anyway. You were. But now you have an idea how to make changes. And I'm going to tell you, write this down. It'll probably be in a PDF if it's not already. You've already gotten a couple of those. You want to be intentional with your words to yourself. You want to stop yourself when you start having negative thoughts, especially that morning brain dump. That's when I have them. That's when I take my spiritual time. I read, or I'll journal, which is one of the best ways to get rid of the brain dump. Be intentional with your physical movement. Be intentional with everything that you do for you that's going to make you feel better in body and mind. Okay? Because when you feel good, when you feel at peace, that's when the best of you comes out towards any relationship that you're going to have. Low self-esteem is going to be I think one of the happy byproducts of this is your self-esteem just kind of comes with the mindset. When you're working on the more positive, more healthy mindset, your healthy self-esteem is going to come right along for the ride. Because honestly, I always felt like my self-esteem was dying for me to save it. Somewhere deep inside, I had self-esteem. Somewhere way deep inside, I wouldn't let it out. And some little voice inside of me said, why can't you be as good as everybody else? You can. It was a lot of work. So for overcoming them, like I say, shifting perspective, reframing your thoughts. I kind of got off on a tangent, if you'll forgive me. But I feel so strongly about this, and I really, in my soul and my heart, believe that nobody deserves to struggle with their self, their mindset, their self-image, their self-esteem. Nobody deserves this. And most of us, if you're like me, didn't realize that this had been programmed in from when you were small. So if you'll forgive me and give me that leeway, I thank you. Mindfulness is the best strategy for shifting and reframing thoughts and putting them into practice. Mindfulness, and you have to couple it with actions. You can write all this stuff down. You can understand it. You can be scholastic about it. You can even go off from this class and do even more research. I gave you last time that I follow and have learned a lot from Marissa Peer. She's one of my favorite people to do this with, to learn from, excuse me. But you'll go off and maybe want to find out more specifics on your own, and that's great. You have to take action. It's not something that it's not something that you can just tattoo in your brain one time and it's done. It's not a one and done. Being active every day with your intentional behavior and words is the best thing. It's just those two things go together. You have to be mindful and you have to take action every day on your own behalf. It's like I said in the first class, if you caught somebody else treating your child the way you treat yourself, would you step in and intervene? And my answer to that was, oh yeah. Oh yeah, in a New York minute I would. So why will you not intervene on your own? Why would you not intervene on your own behalf? Because nobody's a better advocate for you than you. So another strategy for shifting the perspective is, like the list I asked you to make, you're going to identify the evidence of your limiting beliefs. And once you see it there, okay, do your due diligence. Is this something I need to change? Is it about for or against this belief? Is it healthy? Is it true? If it's not true, if it's something that you know needs to be shifted in order for you to be healthy and productive, then yeah, you're just going to kind of from a third party perspective, if you were looking at your list as if it were a third person's list, what would you say to that? If they, for example, you wrote down, you're not worthy to be loved. If you were looking at someone else's list and they had written down, they're not worthy to be loved, then what would you do? You're going to ask them, well, why do you feel that way? What evidence do you have of that? So what's happened to you that you feel is, and I hate to use the word evidence, but that's kind of what it is. It's like, where's the proof behind that pudding? Why do you feel this way? And if that's something that's just, well, I feel like I'm unworthy to be loved because, and they're going to finish that statement, but okay, so where's the evidence since then that you are unworthy to be loved? I kind of felt like I was unworthy to be loved because I had not come into myself. That the version of me that some people get was not the real honest to God me, because I couldn't let the real honest to God me out because she's too weird. She's too not like everybody else and people would make fun. And so that's part of it, that dynamic too, that may come out when you're talking about this with yourself, is that the version of yourself that other people get is a version that you've contrived because you think that's what people want, or because you think that's what's going to make you be accepted, whatever the reason is. Pardon me. I want you to think about some new perspectives that could come about if you were to step out of your comfort zone as far as experiences, maybe the people that you're hanging out with, shake things up a little bit. Every time you do something outside of your normal little comfort zone, your brain is forced to think chemically in a new pattern, and we're trying to create a new brain pattern there so that we can have a better mindset. So if you normally wouldn't, like somebody invites you out to a music venue or I don't know, an art show or something, and you're interested, but you normally wouldn't go because I don't have the right clothes or blah, blah, blah. So what happens if you say yes and you're slightly uncomfortable but a little excited? What happens if you join a book club, or whatever it is that's for me, I joined online communities, especially during that started during the pandemic, because online communities can be fantastic means of support and learning. I started investigating things I was interested in. I'll tell you honestly, over the last year, I have really become, I've really explored my interest in natural healing, and getting away from chemicals in food. That's something I love to cook. And so challenging myself with new ways to cook, new recipes, new ideas it's just infused an energy into my life that I'm so happy for. So I'm going to encourage you to seek out a different experience, whatever that means for your life. And that's going to include some different people. And maybe, being open to some different ideas. It broadens your perspective, and it kind of forces you to challenge some of these limiting beliefs, because here's the thing that you might notice. Being around a different set of people in an experience that you are excited about, those people could be your people. I mean, what if it's your tribe? What if that challenges your limiting belief that you're not smart enough, that you don't fit in. What if that completely challenges that limiting belief, because these people are like, oh, we're so glad to have you. Oh, you have experience, or, oh, I'd love to hear about this, or thank you for your contribution. We're very glad to have you with us. And you find a team of people who you learn from and they learn from you. And it's a very exciting experience. That just ups my brain chemistry just to think about it. You can do it by just reading a book. Get into, if you're more of a video person, but I always suggest reading books. Reading a book on something that you've always wanted to, but you never made time for. Listening to a podcast while you're in the car is another one. Find topics that you're interested in and follow those people. Maybe they're different from you. Maybe you're thinking, well, they come from another country, or they come from a different background and they've had different experiences. Okay, great. So let's benefit from their experiences and add to ours. Because in a day very soon, that's going to be you. I'm not saying you'll definitely have a podcast or anything like that. I'm saying you'll be someone who's in that alignment, who other people are excited to learn from because of your experiences. Doesn't that sound better than continuing in the circle that you're walking in with no hope of anything exciting or healthy or loving or fun ever happening? Doesn't that sound better? Yes, there's going to be relationships that don't come with you on this journey. You're going to have to be ready for that. And that's going to be individual to you, but you're going to be in a better position to make these choices and to deal with the feelings that are involved there. So let's practice our mindfulness. Let's especially concentrate on that this week. It is such a powerful tool. Being aware of what you're about to say or your immediate reaction to something, or once you're aware, it's like once you see it, you can't unsee it. It's that thing. Being present in your moment. That is huge to your mindfulness, because I'll let you in on a secret. The past is way gone and there's nothing you can do about it. The future does not really exist. The only thing that exists is right now, because by the time tomorrow gets here, it's today and it's right now. So be present in the moment. Be observing your reactions and your thoughts. Also observe how much better you're starting to feel. If you take mental note that you didn't jump into a crappy conversation with coworkers about somebody else, or you didn't come to work with we'll get into professional in the next class. Let's make a note that you dealt better with someone you live with at home, your kids, your spouse, whatever, that you were proud of the fact that you were in a much better place and you came at it, and maybe you got a different reaction from them. No, don't be just aware of what you're doing. Be aware of when you ace it. And it's okay to celebrate that. Write it in your journal. Write your good stuff. If you trip up, that's fine. Write that down too, because you're aware. That's a good thing. So when you're implementing these changes, we're looking at communicating more effectively, setting your boundaries, okay, if you set boundaries with yourself. That's where I began with that. No negative self-talk, no name calling, no berating, no demeaning of self. Those are my boundaries with me. Now, if you can set boundaries, you can set boundaries with other people, because we do. But why? We have to set boundaries with ourselves as well. So set your boundaries, because if you respect your own boundaries, you're a whole lot more likely to respect someone else's boundaries. And that's one of the great dynamics in a good relationship, is respecting other people's boundaries, even if you don't agree with them. But you have to set boundaries yourself. So you want to communicate, you want to set your boundaries, and you want to be actively taking responsibility for what you say and how you react to things, and noticing that. Please make sure that you're writing all this down in whatever you think is, I'm not saying all of it, but write down your wins, write down what you almost got to, write down something that you tripped over and want to work on better next time, because I promise you, I hate the word accountability because it sounds like a report card, but but it's the only way to track your progress. It's the only way to come back and go, yeah, I remember last week when I did that and I was very happy, and now I can expound on that. I can go forward. It's just as important that we track our good progress as it is that we track what we mess up on. So, I mean, don't think of it as, I'm trying to think of a better word besides accountability. I'll let you know if I find one. I hope this was helpful. I hope that if you have any questions, you'll get in touch with me. Work on your communication. And if you find yourself not sure what to do, take a breath and step back as if you were a third party watching, and pause. That's my best advice. If you come up on something that you're not sure what to do, pause, because your inner core will tell you what to do. I hope this has been helpful to you. So thank you for attending. I actually went a little over. I knew this class would be a little bit longer. I was hoping I would keep it to 45 minutes, but I'm long-winded. So I hope that you got something out of this. I will be in touch with you either if you message me or by email very, very shortly. And so practice this week and come back for the third class. We'll discuss professional. It's going to relate to this. Until then, take good care.